Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Hearthcenter, your premier show about Pro Series. And I like to think it's the best DHL show, but that's arguable. Today, Dante couldn't make it because he had some small issues, so I'm joined by two special guests. Today, I have Tues joining me. How are you doing today, Tues?
Excellent. I just got back from a bike ride. Pretty fun.
Nice. And we also have the one and only Aviously. How are you doing, Avi?
uh, even better than Tues. I went on a bike ride 2 weeks ago, and I'm still living off that high.
Okay. I guess we have a lot to talk today, and it's going to be a packed show. I'm sorry we started a little late. There were some Discord issues, plus I'm an incompetent OP, so that ended up taking a while. That being said, we're going to talk about Pro. Um, Very interesting week 3 in Pro. Then we're going to do a top rank, and we're going to do a rank on. I believe we decided that we're doing the top 5 most underrepresented cards in the meta. So each of us are going to say 5 cards, and Avi said he's going to say 5 mage cards. So,
Way to ruin it.
or maybe he won't. He might change it just because I said it now and just go over 5 hunter cards. Are there even
You
underrepresented
could do
hunter
anything.
cards?
5
Yeah,
shaman cards just for CMAC.
that could be a nice one. Then we're going to go over a preview of what's to come in week 4, where we'll all say who we think is going to win, and we'll have our sub special. Just as a reminder, if you sub during the stream, you will get us to talk about your performance this week and basically your performance in pro so far. So if you want to have the three of us talk about how you've been doing in pro, you can just give a sub and at the end stick around to hear us talking about you. I will pull some time research, or one of us will just catch how you're doing very fast on the THL webpage or from what we know and just go over how we think you're doing. That being said, I think we can get it started. Are you guys ready?
Yeah!
Heck yeah.
Okay. So this was an interesting week for Pro. I'm going to start with the first match here. We have Washumishas versus Staplast 103. So instead of me talking about the match, I think Tues is the one who should talk about this one.
Okay. So, last champ brought this tech in his rogue. It was a Plague of Madness Harrison Jones tech. And it didn't work out, as you can see.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, that does
don't know. I feel
not
like
make
these are just
sense.
two teams. I think we're both pretty solid teams. Brought some pretty solid decks. Had some pretty solid Hearthstone games. It was close. I feel like out of these two teams, one of them's probably going to make playoffs. Probably a top team.
Washumishas
Dare I
did
say a
an
championship
incredible.
team?
So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Coming off of two 20-point weeks.
yeah, that's insane. I think
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. It's been
Yeah,
really cool seeing the collegiate team kind of get some representation in THL recently, especially now that everybody's stuck at home. We're getting to see a lot of players who may not have had the time to play in THL in the past taking their crack at it. And they certainly came out swinging.
Dude,
yeah,
all I say is some poor souls in test we're gonna have to play against Washu Mishas pretty much.
that's
Unlucky
true.
there.
That does not seem like what you want to do. I think the interesting thing I see is two of your players brought Shaman. CMAC brought Shaman, and Last Champ brought Shaman. I assume that's a control Shaman?
Yeah. That's been C-Mac's pet deck pretty much the entire expansion. He
Hmm,
just likes to give him the fist.
I get that. So is it Highlander or is it just control?
It's just the fist shaman, just the control one. Lots of board clears.
Okay. I can see it being useful against Warrior, actually, because it's good control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was playing some Highlander Shaman the other day, and it actually feels pretty solid. It kind of has a rough matchup against aggro, but I felt like a lot of that was because I didn't have the double Witches Brew.
Right.
So I could see how like the non-Highlander version would probably do a lot better against Demon Hunter, for example, because whenever I played that card, it just felt like nobody could beat me.
Yeah, that card can heal for so much, and Demon Hunter does not want you to heal.
Yeah, we don't have Reno in the meta, but that's about the closest thing we got to it in terms of just sheer healing power.
That's true. Any last comments about this first match?
I'm
Not particular.
excited to see where WashU Mishas goes, and it's nice to see Tap Last getting a win. Shows that the Mishas are not a unstoppable force, but I'm sure they're going to keep tearing through the season after this.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, the second match, we have a very interesting result with Everyday We Trifling versus The Unknown. So this is a super tight match. 15-13 is basically anyone's game all the way to the end. We have Asian PWE beating Desharmo 3-2. Jimmy Tues 1-3 against. 1 second, I cannot see that very well. Anyone read that one?
Your mom cat or
Your mom cat, right? Or
Yeah, your mom kid.
yeah, your
yeah.
mom cat versus Catman. Lil Harthy versus Brushy Tuna, and sorry, my stream is not giving me good resolution. Okay, and Sanguine
We
versus
got
Solo Jet. So it was Rum
Mhm.
Mexico versus Jimmy Issues, and we see that
Oh
Rum
yeah.
Mexico beat Jimmy Issues 3-1. Your Mom Cat 3-1 against Catman. Lil Harthy 3-2 against Brushy Tuna, and Sanguine 2-3 against Solo Jazz. I don't think there was any crazy result. These are both very solid teams. I think the Unknown is. It's surprising to me that they're 1-2 so far, but also they've played some really strong teams, and they
The
got
other loss was to WashU Mishas, I think. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure.
and they got hit really hard by the Mishas.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Any
Getting hit
I
by
particular
mean,
Misha is kind of weird. I'm more getting hit by Huffer.
It's true.
I think
Any
it's actually, I don't know, pro across the board. Nobody has fallen behind super far in points yet, and a lot of the losses we're seeing are pretty close. I think that's a good sign of a good season to come. Except the WashU Mishas game matches.
yeah, this is
I should
looking.
qualify that.
It's looking so smooth so far. There's one or another team, and we'll get there. We'll get to some very interesting match results later.
Yeah, and
Um,
really interesting to note all the teams that came into this week at 2-0 got their first loss this week. So we have no well, we do have an undefeated team, but we'll get to that in a second.
right. We have the next match is Due Process versus Serenity. Choose. Do you want to get this one, or actually,
Yeah.
why
So,
don't Avi get this one? Because then we'll keep alternating casters.
Yeah. So in Due Process versus Serenity, we see Due Process continuing to pull it out. They are the sole undefeated team left in pro, with a tie, as a little footnote there. But they're absolutely exceeding everyone's expectations. I think a lot of people at
Yes.
the beginning of the season would have put Due Process at the bottom or near the bottom of the standings, and they are blowing that out of the water, doing really well. Um, my initial impression of the team was that Doctor Bomb, Boolean, and Goose were just stepping up to the plate and crushing it all of a sudden, and just taking the season very seriously. And we saw them pull out most of the wins across the first 2 weeks. But this week we saw both Doctor Bomb and Boolean fall in the 1 and 2, and the 4 and 5 picked up the slack and got the wins that they needed. So it looks like anything on this team could and maybe will work out. I definitely don't think that they're necessarily the best team in the league with their undefeated record, but I'm excited to see a team that I wouldn't have expected to do that well, kind of pulling out some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. It'd be interesting to see if they have any little meta secrets or matchup things that just like as their team they figured out over all the other teams.
Mm-hmm.
Because players
And
traditionally have not been like insane THL like players, but it's really cool to see them working together. Teamwork,
yeah,
or there's some saying with teamwork here they probably can apply to them.
Yeah, and potentially some players who didn't have the time to devote to Hearthstone to really learn the meta in the past are getting some time now.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
not sure that that's the case with his team, but I've definitely seen that with some players who I think really just didn't have the time to learn all the things they needed to about meta decks in the past and are now getting that time and are really showing up. On Serenity's side, we kind of see like an unfortunate story where we have two players who just have not been able to pull it together yet this season and are sitting at 0-3. Um, they got their first week win, right? But they've kind of been falling apart since then, and I'd like to see what they can do if they pull themselves back together, get those 4 and 5 seeds winning again, and hopefully, because their 1 and 2 seeds aren't like 1 through 3 are doing fine. I mean, I guess the 3 seed is 1 and 2, so he's not crushing it. But I've seen GCT Turf grinding out those open cups. I'm sure they at least have the potential to come back if they may not execute on it.
Right.
Hmm.
I think Serenity Dexter is a good captain, even if he has one very hard circumstance that they're mostly Indian players, so it's harder time zone wise to just match with American players. And I say America as a whole, not just the country, the whole continent, because we do have some of us that are far. And yeah, that being said, I think they can actually do a good job. GCT Earth is a really good player, so I see Serenity as having a lot of potential, and I expect them to get better as the season goes on.
Hmm. And you know, India just has to prove that they can be on they can go the EU way and get the EU power instead of going the way as Asia Grandmasters and being the weakest region.
True.
Need to pull from the north.
Harsh, but true. So do you want to keep talking about the next team, Avi?
Yeah. So this is Bad to the Bone. This is my team, and I want to direct your attention first to the 5 seed where we have self-proclaimed worst player on the team, LotusKnight, pulling out a sweep for the second
Yes.
week in a row.
Still
Over Nine
defend worst
Eyebrows,
player in
who,
the team.
although he's
Yeah.
0-3, he is no slouch, and still a great win from Lotusite. And we got our ladder grinders, Ega Waffle and Farron, losing to Dabs and Smork, which both very good players in their own right.
Yeah.
Open cup grinders day and night. And then in the 1 and 2, we see Aviously and A2 Battleship falling to Base Dink and Mata in my match against Space Inc. was wild. I did not know what I wanted to bring this week. I brought a very bold anti aggro lineup that I think just wasn't quite tuned enough, and I kind of had to reverse sweep the warrior. But Base Inc. got some good draws, made some good plays. I definitely made a couple misplays. Every single misplay that we made during our match got maximally punished, and Base Inc. pulled out with the win there. The
Mm.
one loss was a game where Base Dink uh, missed 1 damage to the face and then went for a turn where they sent 3 bombs to my face trying to kill me, and I was at 4 life, and all 3 of them dealt 1 damage, so I pulled out the 1 in 64 to win, and I came back to win that game.
That's fair.
And then, yeah, A2 versus Mata, 2 collegiate players playing it out in the 2 seed, and Mata came away with the victory. So for the boys taking up a first win and a fairly convincing one against one of the teams who came out with a very strong start of the season. So this is definitely the win that for the boys needed to get back in it.
Oh yeah.
See you, Tris. The Tris cut seems to have paid off, getting the 3-0 on Smork.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Smark is a good player. He's performed well in
Yeah.
THL before, and yeah, no surprise there.
Mm.
I think For the Boys is a good team. I've said it before, and yeah, I'm excited to see if they can make a comeback and become one of the strongest teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That being said,
Yeah,
I
I'm
would
excited.
not give up on Bad to the Bone. I think we're still strong and we're still coming back.
Yeah, I think we had some doubts in deck selection this past week that made it a little bit tougher for us, and I'm hoping we can make some more confident choices heading into the future.
Oh yeah. I'm happy I just get an extra day to submit just because of a sub. That for me is all I wanted. No week like this one. Really enjoy something like that.
Oh, yes.
Next match we have Stay the Blazes home versus the Beard Boys. Tues, do you want to talk about this one now?
Yeah, so basically Tweeg seems to have just utterly rallied the troops to a complete domination of the Beard Boys here. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Stay the Blazes home has, I think, a lot of unknowns in THL, right? Besides Tweeg, have any of them played before?
I don't believe so.
So yeah, and then the Beard Boys, of course, are a really well-known team for the most part. I think last season they made playoffs. Or they were a top team last season, right? With a very similar roster. So big win
Yeah.
for Stay the Blazes home.
Yeah. It's a big win.
Uh,
Beard Boys were, I think they were 1 or 2 points off the playoffs.
oh, okay.
The
Oof.
unknown ended up making instead. But it's a,
And I think the one thing to recognize about the big TWWEG up there in the 1 seed is that we see in his match that Myanodon made the classic mistake of not banning Tweeg Zoo. And that's just going to have to end up with a sweep on him pretty much every time. So it was unfortunate from Myanodon. Maybe he'll pull it back in the future, but just a really classic blunder from him there.
He probably saw the defender of Argus and thought, maybe he doesn't know how to play Zoo. And then he forgot the Tweeg, in fact, invented Zoo. So, big mistake.
it certainly paid off for State of Blazes home, though. A 20 week for a team that wasn't super hot is definitely what you want to keep yourself bumping up.
hmm
Speaking of teams that with high expectations that have not been performing super well so far, we had Aeon versus F2L. This was a repeat of the finals from last pro season, and what everyone would expect to be one of the hottest matches of the season was actually not the main match of the week. It's weird to see this as the last match. Both teams were the ones with the least points, I believe. Maybe Serenity or one other were below. That being said, Aeon squeezed really, really tightly a win with a 13-12. Basically, super easy to have a tie or to switch the result at any moment. With so let me just here 1 second, just a small technical hiccup because Hearthcenter always needs to have a small technical hiccup. Yeah, so Markshire 3-1 against Liquidox. Fuel 1-3 against Robobson. Arhat losing to Berserk 0-3. Coles beating Snake 3-1, and Donde beating Itachi 3-2. F2L does have some good players, but it seems like Snake and Itachi are having some trouble taking off. How do you guys feel about this match? What do you think? Any interesting results? Anything that calls your attention here?
Yeah. The Robobson and Berserk both bought Paladin and Shaman lineups, and they both won.
That's
So I think that makes
true.
Paladin and Shaman lineups 100% win rate this week.
That's true.
Which I think is
Um,
surprising because both of those classes were thought before the balance changes were thought to be probably the two weakest in the meta.
yeah, I think you're going, if you're bringing these, you're going pretty high in an you're going pretty high in an anti-warrior slash anti-demon hunter kind of lineup.
Mm-hmm.
That being said,
Yeah,
Rebob and Berserk are good players, so I think they can pull such a strategy off, and they kind of show it.
we see the double Paladin strat from both of them as well. We see many Paladins in Pro Series. Every single Paladin in the Aeon versus F2L match getting a win,
That's
validating
true.
Donde and his personal quest for to lead people to see the light of Paladin. And
That
then we see
means
Paladin get swept in the other two matches across the Pro, so perhaps it was not quite as
that's
amazing of a bring.
true. Cole's Paladin was a Murloc Paladin, though. So
Ah,
that was a little bit different. It's not as much light as it is the sea.
yeah. Well, you know what they say. Sometimes in the deepest depths, what shines brightest is what attracts the fish to be killed by the angler. Oh wait, what?
Yes.
Cold Light Angler is one shiny boy. I think that was the point I was trying to make.
Yeah. Do you know what is also shiny? The money you can save if you sub with Twitch Prime by if you have Amazon Prime. Because you can sub with Twitch Prime and it's going to be free as long as you have an Amazon Prime account. And if you sub today, we do have a sub special where we'll talk about your performance in Pro or something else if you want to DM me. And we'll go over your performance in a special series. So,
If you
yeah.
lost last week, we'll just pretend that you won as well.
Yeah, that's true. We can also do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Also, a last quick comment about the pro matches from last week is we actually see F2L, despite being the only winless team in the series, coming out at third from last in the point standing. So they're above two teams who are sitting at 1 and 2, Aeon and Beard Boys, who just have not been able to pull as many points out of their weeks.
Yeah.
So it may not be quite as obvious as it seems, because F2L may have had 3 bad weeks, but they're still pulling out a decent number of points from them.
That's true. All the wins against them, I believe, are quite tight. They're just not getting the whole win. They're squeezing a bit out, squeezing a lot of points out of what they can.
Mhm.
That being said, it's time for us to go into our top ranking segment. So, our ranking today is going to be top 5 cards you believe are underrated. And we'll go, why don't Tues start this time? Tues, any idea of a card, your number 5 most underrated card right now?
Plague of Madness. It's kind of just the nuts with Harrison Jones when you think about it. Like, Weapons Project Harrison Jones was a classic warrior combo.
It
And
was.
may as well add it to Rogue, I guess. My number 4 most underutilized card is going to be Wisp.
Okay.
It's pretty useful in baiting your opponent not to ban a deck that you want to be left up. That's really strong. So maybe throw Wisp in a warrior. I tried that last week. It still got banned, but then I can say, haha, you banned warrior, which was pretty fun. They
Yeah.
banned Wisp. Number 3.
Instead of going the whole list, why don't we each do our bottom 2 and then we'll
Okay.
alternate a bit so we save some surprises for the end. What are your bottom 2, Avi?
Okay, so number 5, I'm gonna have to go with Incanter's Flow. It's the new mage spell that reduces the cost of all the spells in your deck by 1. For the most part, people have only been playing it in the all spell mage deck that we've seen kind of as a fringe deck in this meta. But I think it has a lot of potential heading into the future to have some really sick combos with both Chenvala or Archmage Antonidas or Gadgetzan Auctioneer. So I think that's a card to keep an eye on as more cards come out, because I think it really has a niche that it is not quite found yet.
I would be shocked if it at least doesn't break wild at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a card, like anything that can mana cheat so as drastically as this card can, it feels like it has to have some crazy spot in the meta.
Yeah, there needs to be a moment where that's going to break somehow. It's not
Mhm.
now, but it's certainly a dangerous card.
My number 4 card is I think it's got to go to some of these new shaman cards that just got recently buffed. I think I'm going to go with the Lurker Below. It might not be that underrated. I think people know it's quite powerful, but this card was already good at 6/3, and at 6/5, it's just absolutely insane. Like, it often can clear huge swaths of a board. It feels like a stronger rolling fireball just tacked onto a 6/5 body for 6, which is just entirely unreasonable. And I'd be very surprised if this card doesn't just carry Shaman to greatness in the future.
Hmm. It's an interesting call. I'm going to say my most underrated cards. I actually think the number 5 card is a card that you'll see it every now and then, but I think for the amount of cards it can hurt in the current meta, it's super underrated. I have to go with Boom Pistol Bully. That card just Still really insane against Rogue. It hits all the Highlander decks quite hard because they have a ton of Battlecry cards. So I have to put Boom Pistol Bully in. I think you, especially now that Warrior's not going to be as, well, it's still good, but it's not as good as it was before. I think we're going to see quite a bit of Bully starting pretty soon. My second card is a card I've been playing a lot, and I was playing Rogue, and I like Stealth Rogue right now. It's actually interesting. So I'm gonna go with the draw card, which I just forgot the name, and I'm looking for the name right now. But it is called
Greyheart Sage?
Greyheart Sage. I
Oh, so
think
good.
that 3 mana 3/3, if you have a stealth minion draw 2 card, is underrated and underused because Galakrond Rogue could use some draw. So if you just add Spy Mistress and maybe a few more, 1 or 2 other stealth cards, you're going to be fine. So I have to say, underrated Greyheart Sage. And yeah, it's a card that everyone said was going to be good from the start. It's not like the 1/10 that the Warrior 3 mana 1/10 that people said, I don't think it's that good, and I actually called that one. But yeah. So Avi, do you want to go with your number 3?
Yeah, so my number 3 is gonna be a little bit of a 2-card package here. So we have this. Oh wait, 1 second. I
Sure.
lost it. Oh, okay. Well, we got this card, Arcane Flak Mage, right? Which I think is just very underutilized right now. This card absolutely destroys any type of tempo demon hunter. And I guess the honorable mentions goes to the Arcane Mysteries package. Not that I think that
Yeah.
Arcane Mysteries isn't seeing play, but I think that the Arcane Mysteries plus Arcane Flak Mage in some non-Highlander decks is really gonna start taking off as a way to control those early boards, especially from decks like Demon Hunter or Warrior in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I I think I could see that. I can see it being a really interesting way to hurt Demon Hunter because yeah, if you can deal 2 damage AoE, most of their minions do have 2 health. So that sounds like a strong way to hit him. I'll go next, and we'll end with Tues in the third. To hear Tues' third most underrated card, but for me, I'm actually going to go with a nerfed card. I'm going to say Crimson Sigil Runner. A lot of people thought it would be unplayable as a 2/1, but honestly, still feels pretty good. Still 1 mana Novice Engineer. And you might end up lowering the curve of the deck a bit more because there's no more reason to run Priestess of Fury when Priestess of Fury doesn't have that much health and survivability. But I think Sigil Runner is still really good and it's still going to be there.
Okay. My third card is Mana Burn. I think the card does get played, but I think it gets played a lot less than it should. And the card's just insane.
Yeah.
I think being able to like take a lead and then like being a little bit ahead and lock your opponent out of their next turn and just like multiply your lead is like insane. And I don't understand why like more people aren't doing it. So
Yeah.
that's my number 3.
I can see that.
I guess it is a little bit of a high rolling card because you have to have a lead with it. Like it's kind of situational, but it feels really satisfying to just know your opponent's sitting there mad, like not being able to play their cards.
It's true. It's true. It's I've won matches because of it. You just play it, especially turn 2. And you say you're not going to have a turn 2, and if your opponent is a hunter, they're not happy about that. Do you want to go with your number 2 card, Tues?
Oh, my number 2. I have my number 1. I don't have my number 2 yet. Can you go back to me in a sec?
Sure. Sure. Avi, do you want to say your number 2?
Yeah, so my number 2 card is the Master Mage at creating second copies of your minions, or shall I call them twinions. It's none other than the Mad Khadgar himself. I'm not seeing this. I don't think that this should be played in like the current mage decks with Highlander Mage, but I have a very compelling reason to play Khadgar, but that's gonna have to wait for my number 1 slot.
Okay. Okay. Interesting choice there. I'm going to say that what I think is underrated, and I don't know if I would call this one a very crazy choice, but yeah, I think Overconfident Orc is actually underrated because that card is so good against Demon Hunter and against aggro in general, and there's still people not playing that little 3 mana 3/6 taunt. You should play that card in way too many decks that are just choosing to play other cards right now. It's very efficient. It's a good taunt. Just overall amazing card. Tues, did you find out your number 2 card?
You know, I'm just gonna say Galakron the Wretched. I want to see some Warlock Galakrons coming down again. I don't know if that card's good or anything, but
Yeah.
surely we try it again with the balance changes. Maybe it's good. The demon pool is
Yeah.
kind of nutty right now, so I feel like that's a
I'll
deck
say
that
like
just like if enough stuff gets
having
nerfed,
the
like that deck would
ability
just be
to
good.
make dormant demons off that guy right now is going to be really nice if we ever get a control meta again, because like it's so good to make a board that just doesn't die to board clears on
Mm-hmm.
its own. I've definitely run into that against Galakron a couple of times where they just make a board and like you can clear half the board, but it leaves like 2 or 3 big dormant minions behind, and that's just a really nice new feature of Galakron that I didn't have in the past.
Right. That's true.
And then
Um, I'll go for my number 1 then, and then we'll go to you guys. My number 1 choice is Priest's 1 mana 1/3 Reliquary of Souls. That card is actually really interesting because it helps you in the mirror. It can help you against aggro. I think that card fits in more decks than are playing it right now. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it has a weird stat line because 1 mana 1/3 is good for one, but lifesteal is not an effect you expect in a 1 attack minion. And I think it can still mess up hunters and warriors really hard. You're also playing priest, so you're going to mess up warrior. But it can help you in the demon hunter matchup as well. So I have to go with Reliquary of Souls.
Nice. I think the part of the reason that card's not seeing as much play though is because the priest deck doesn't care all that much about hitting the 1-drop, and
Yes,
they discover so many minions, so they usually just kind of get it at some point.
they do, but in the mirror, having an extra one is really crucial.
Mm.
Just the fact that you can add a card to your deck. That's actually a pretty good card. If you get the prime, you tend to win a lot of matchups because it's
Mm.
a 6/8 taunt lifesteal.
Well, C-Max reminding us that the shaman in fact plays that card to their fist of Radan.
Oh, does it always generate Reliquary as
Yeah,
a
it's the only 1-cost legendary right now.
yeah, it's a
interesting?
really nice tool for fatigue matchups.
Yeah, I did not realize that. Huh.
And some lists have played the classic Cobalt Spellkin because it both enables your lightning breath and also gives you the ability to generate more Reliquary of Souls off your Fist of Radan if you so desire.
Oh God. I can see that.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I was playing around with it in the Highlander Shaman.
Huh.
Although there's always the problem of if you shuffle in multiple Reliquary back halves, you can sometimes get screwed on your Highlander cards.
Right. So you need to be a bit smart about it. Interesting.
Mhm.
I did not think of that as a priest card. I had actually not noticed that interaction. Huh. Well, I guess
Some
that's the shaman card. Who wants to go first in your number 1 card?
Well, my number one is like it's an archetype card. It's the Augmergent.
Okay.
I think we're actually gonna see him rise in play now that some of the 1-drops, once the Sojourner have gotten nerfed. I think the Demon Hunter might start adding them in a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that having like the kind of like the modes there, right? It can be a ping on your opponent's minion or give you the effect on your own minions is really nice.
That's true.
I think utility cards are good, and that's kind of exactly what they are. They're just kind of like they're never like an insane card, but you can always find a way to use them to some use.
Sure.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to check out a spicy zoo list that's really using utilizing these aug merchants, you can check out SGAH Ice's list from the Open Cups over the weekend. I played against him 3 times this past weekend in Open Cups, all in like relatively later rounds of the tournament. And he was playing a zoo that had not only 5 aug merchants, 2 guardian, 2 rocket, and one of the ethereal, the spell damage ones. Presumably mostly for the pings, although he also obviously guardian's just a very good card in its own right. But also he was running a lackeys package with 2 evil geniuses, 2 sinister deals, and a dark pharaoh to con.
Huh.
So just a little way to add a little bit more value generation and late game into your zoo warlock if you're interested.
Was he also playing the hand buff package?
Oh yeah, he had all the traditional zoo things. Although with the nerfs, it may be less exciting.
Interesting. Sounds like a really cool zoo list. We'll have to check that
and
out.
my number 1 spot is a card that went under the radar a little bit when it came out in the Descent of Dragon set. Did not see a lot of play right away. It's seen a little bit of play in Spell Mage. It's seen a bit of play in some weird lists of Reno Mage. But my card is Learn Draconic. And now
Mm-hmm.
the reason that I like Khadgar all of a sudden is because it turns out that if you have a Learn Draconic in play, you can very easily get it up to 7 out of 8 ticks. And then you drop
Oh.
Khadgar, you play your last spell, and you summon 2 6/6s. It's just a huge tempo burst for any mage. And especially because mage can play cards like Frost Nova, you can just get down 14 power into a board undisputed. It can easily turn into wins with Alexstrasza. You can Conjurer's Calling your dragon after playing after playing Khadgar and get just a full board immediately. There's just so many ways to take advantage of that. And I think that like Learn Draconic was already a kind of solid card, but I think post rotation it really hasn't quite found its home yet. But I feel like it should. I was playing with it some in Cyclone Mage. It felt very solid, and I think that there's definitely other options with where to go with that card, especially in conjunction with Khadgar.
It's a really interesting combo. I don't think I have seen it as much as I thought I should. Hmm. It is a lot of power. If you can get that down on turn 5 or even 6, that wins the game right there.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely hilarious when you're playing against like a demon hunter and you either clear their board with you can like clear their board with an early flak mage and then follow it up with a Khadgar and on the Learn Draconic, and it's just all of a sudden like they went from having this board of battle fiends and satyrs to they're just facing down like 2 6/6 dragons and a Khadgar and a flak mage, and it's just like what happened? Where did this game go?
Yeah. Yeah, that does sound like something you don't want to see that often. Um, any special mention cards you guys think? Ooh, we forgot to say this one really quick.
Barista.
I was going to ask about that one. I knew Tues was going to mention Barista.
Meta's too fast, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if
I
it
also
changes.
I think the other kind of hero of mage that may not have quite gotten the play it deserves yet is Mana Giant. I think like the only lists I've seen playing it are some things from APX Void where he was playing a weird tempo mage that was like almost Cyclone Mage but didn't have Cyclone, didn't have Conj. But Mana Giant's really good in the deck with Conj and Khadgar and Learn Draconic. And it is relatively easy to get some things going, especially with invoke or with evocation being a new way to reduce the cost of it quite a bit during a turn. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's definitely a card that's felt very strong when I'm playing Cyclone Mage recently. Um, you don't have Mountain Giant, but having Mana Giant and Learn Draconic definitely helps with that. So I wouldn't be surprised if it finds its place. The card's ridiculously powerful, but it definitely feels like some of the other cards in its in the deck surrounding it are not quite pulling their weight at the moment.
True. So, interesting insights so far. Before we go into week 4 preview, I want to ask you, without spoiling your lineups, seems like we don't have that much data yet on what's in for the week. So what classes are you guys expecting to see? What are some classes you think we're going to see a lot? What are some classes that you think, I don't think we'll see that as much as people are thinking?
I think a lot of people are gonna bait it into Paladin this week.
Yep. I think Paladin is something that seemed like the 1-mana 1/3 would help it a lot, but realistically, from seeing it play, it doesn't actually help that much. I don't think that Paladin's biggest weakness was really its early game. I think it's that it kind of plays like a value deck that can't quite take the value to the control decks and actually take them out of the late game. I think it's unfavored against Priest, and it's just a very awkward combination of factors that means that even though it feels like maybe it should counter aggro pretty well because it was doing pretty well against it beforehand, it feels like the 1/3 doesn't actually do that in the way it wants it to. It's certainly a powerful card, but it doesn't feel like it was enough to make it tier 1.
I think having a 1-drop really helps because that deck does need early place, but I just don't think it's enough. You need a
Yeah,
few
the
good
1-drop into Hand
1-drops.
of Adal is great when you get it,
Yes.
but it's not happening every game still. I
Yeah.
have
The
been very fascinated by that deck in Wild with Crystology to fetch up the 1/3s now, though. That's certainly something to try out if you wanna jam some Librams.
Interesting.
in Wild.
Oh yeah, Crystology into the 1/3 is hot.
I think you can do a little bit more broken things in Wild, if I'm not mistaken. If any of the Wild guys are around, I'm sure they can give us a huge lesson on that one. Also,
I
shout out to
mean,
the Wild Show on Mondays.
yeah, if you want to go all in on some Immortal Prelates too, go full Libram.
Oh
You could
God.
so many Librams. It's ridiculous how many
Wait,
Librams.
that's kind of crazy, actually.
Yeah, I really want to try this deck out, but I haven't gotten a chance yet. We'll see.
That's
We'll see.
way too many books.
Is this the Avi stream? Climb to Wild Legend
Oh
with
yeah.
Libram Paladin.
You know, I think that that's a deck that even Ty Lopez would be greatly proud of. It's just all about the knowledge.
Ugh,
Mhm.
that deck.
I think one of the big winners after the nerfs actually is Highlander Hunter, and I'm expecting to see a lot more of it.
Yes.
It kind of like its main aggressor was like these demon hunters that could really get under it, and I think seeing the demon hunter nerfs even further, and not having that have to be an automatic ban every time you want to bring that deck will be helpful.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll
It's
see where that goes, but that's certainly something to keep an eye on. I'm expecting to see more hunters this week, even though we've seen a lot in the past.
I think I agree.
Mhm.
I expect a ton of Highlander Hunter. I also think Mage is going to come up a bit, and I'm not sure how much, but I think Mage has a really good spread except for Hunter. And it didn't have a great Demon Hunter spread, but with some techs and with the nerfs, current numbers have it as a 50-50. So I think I'm expecting to see a lot more Mage than we were before.
Oh, and of course, the everyone's favorite deck from the new set, the Spell Druid, now featuring Ysera Unleashed, has been a huge winner from these nerfs as well. It's like its main weakness is when you can just rush it down early, and I think that a lot of people are both playing decks that don't do that well and are just not adequately prepared for it, and that's why we see its win rate being so high on ladder. And I think that probably translates into THL pretty well. Although I expect to see more of it in the open decklist formats than in the closed decklist because it's just such an
Right.
obvious deck. Like there's not a lot of other good druid decks that you can audible into.
No, there are not.
And
Druid is.
unless you want to go big druid to try and like counter some aggro decks, but I don't know how that deck wins. I'm vastly confused by that deck.
I actually beat a warrior with that deck in Hero. It works out pretty well. It has a great warrior matchup because a 110 is not that good if all it can hits are huge taunt minions. It
Yeah,
just that
but
card feels really bad.
we both haven't been seeing Warrior perform nearly as well on ladder since the nerfs, and I also think a lot of people will overreact to the Warrior nerfs and not bring it at all. Even though I think it's still quite a good bring, and we'll probably still see quite a few players bring it to decent success. But I think with
Yeah,
that, that also makes a lot of the previous anti-Warrior brings quite a bit weaker.
yeah. I agree with that. I think it's just going to be harder, especially this week. There's no guarantee that you're going to see a certain deck. Pretty much last week, you were almost guaranteed to face a warrior, or even if you weren't facing a warrior, there was a really good chance you were going to see a demon hunter. So you could bet on one of the two or both being there really accurately, which might not be the case this week. They both were hit and they haven't been having a huge success. And I don't know, I don't see also as many decks as being advertised as really strong. Like Ahi Runs hasn't posted anything. I feel like a lot of my sources are kind of low.
Yeah, the HS replay stats are seeming to going back to favoring a lot of old lists that just didn't lose anything from the new
Yeah,
cards. So I'm sure that there's going to be some more developments to come. It feels like Libram Paladin's a very tough deck to fine tune.
yes.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see something like it work in the future, but I think that this week it is not going to perform as well as people would think with the new buffs.
Hmm.
Yeah, I get that. So let's take a look at next week now that we've talked a little bit about the decks. Um, our first match is actually a pretty big one. We have the number 1 and 2 teams facing each other. So we're going to have Everyday We Try Flynn versus Washu Mishas, which is just such a hot match. I'm expecting this to be probably the match to watch. I hope they want to be on Schoolstone. If you want to have your match streamed on Schoolstone, we're always looking for matches. You can just fill the form, put the schedule, or message me or Base directly, or and we'll see what happens. Um, as for our first match, we have ESO Glockta facing Agent PWE, Heatchalk facing Jimmy Eachus, Agarner versus Your Mumked, Baldus versus Lilharthi, Ufric versus Sanguine. So, what are you guys thinking here? What are your thoughts on matches?
Uh, I'm pretty high on the Washu Mishas. I mean, they have the two 20-point weeks. And I've talked to a lot of their players, and they're like really, really smart and put a lot of time into the game.
Yeah.
I think it's a team that you'd have to be kind of crazy to pick against, like almost ever,
Yeah,
unless it's
and
your
I
own team
think
and you just need the confidence.
especially from talking to some of these college students, there's a lot of people who basically school was their main commitment and they didn't have a lot lined up over the summer, or the things that they had often fall through because of being stuck at home. And so many of these people are basically full time Hearthstone committed right now with the full replay reviews and glorious play discussions up until 3 a.m. So I think Heat
Yeah.
Shock is primed to go, and I'm sure that his teammates are as well.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I know I say this a lot, but I think Skittles is really strong to have in a team just because of how good he is at micromanaging decks. He'll bring you facts like, oh, if you play in your rogue, maybe if you play Plague of Shadows, you're going to win this matchup. Just be like, what? Does that even work? And he'll explain to you why. And it turns out that works sometimes. He basically won me my match against Rebob for Hero. Just because he said, you should try putting this card in this deck. A long time ago, he told me that. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it. And it worked out perfectly. So, not going to spoil what the card is. But yeah, I think this is going to be a good match. If I had to guess this one, I think this is going to be either a 4-1 or a 3-2 for the Mishas.
Hmm. Yeah, so the things that are more exciting for me out of this one are Valdez versus Little Hearthy, and then of course the two undefeated players.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I I think like a lot of these matches are very close. I think like I see some pretty close matchups. I think that Heat Shock is favored against Jimmy Eat Shoes, but maybe not by a like massive margin. I don't know Jimmy that well, but I've heard a couple of good things about him, and I think that the 5 seed is favored for Washu Mishas. I don't really know enough about ESO Glocta to say confidently that he's favored versus Agent PWE, but I think that he is just based on seeing some of his results. And then I think the 4 and 5 seeds are very close matchups. So I would say Washu Mishas probably takes this 3-2 or 4-1 as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, now as for our second match, we already have a first result for this match. So Due Process has won their first game with Dr. Bomb beating Wangor 3-2. How are you guys feeling about Due Process versus Stay the Blazes home?
There's no tweak.
There's no tweak this week.
Yeah,
Oh
no.
my
No.
goodness. It's
Stay
a
the Blazes
disaster.
home just lost their absolute star up there in the 1 seed, and I think they're gonna struggle without it.
Yeah,
No,
there's no tweak.
I was told that Rarin is Tweeg's official stand-in and is going to be exactly like Tweeg in as many aspects as possible.
Okay.
So maybe if he pulls off the impression well enough, Stay the Blazes home can pull it back to a 4-1. I've been very impressed by Due Process so far this season. It is hard to say at this point that I lack as much confidence in them as I did at the beginning of the season. But I think Stay the Blazes home probably will. I think this is going to be a 3-2 one way or the other, and I guess I'm leaning towards Due Process just because they already have the first match in. But I think this could be a fairly close one, and unfortunately, I just don't know enough about Stay the Blazes home to accurately predict anything here.
Yeah, this has been a hard team to predict. Stay the Blazes home and Misha's are really hard teams to predict just because we don't know a lot of the players. And they might be insane, but we just don't know them, and it's really hard to say much. That being said, it's so hard to go against the only undefeated team. I did go against the Mishas last time, so I'm going to. And JR is watching, so just because of that, I'm going to go against Due Process. And I'm going to say Stay the Blazes home wins. Um, I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be like a 13-12 or something like that. So a 3-2 win for Stay the Blazes home, but I think they're going to win.
I think I'm going to lean towards Due Process just because they already have the points on the board and being an undefeated team. But I feel like both of these teams are teams that, like, even if they put up multiple weeks of impressive performances, they're just going to keep kind of getting doubted
Yes.
just because they aren't known or traditionally, like, incredible players. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like Due Process could literally go undefeated and people will be like, but do they win this week?
That's true. That
Yeah,
is
should be
true.
a good match.
Yeah, and I just want to know that I've been betting on JR to be my comeback player of the season, and so far it's so good. So I hope he gets that at least one of my predictions right. Tues, why don't you talk about the next match?
Okay, so first of all, there is a result in this one. Lawful Dog won 4-1 against Pressure, 3-1 against Pressure Tune again, the 4 points.
Nice. Okay, so Lawful Dog gets a winner against Tuna.
Lawful Dog in the win. So I mean, just of course we're gonna 20-0 and we're already winning, like, or not 20-0, 20x whatever. Utter dominance from our team, clearly.
Yeah.
I think looking at this lineup of players, I feel like every single matchup is close, but also I feel like I give Tab Blast a slight edge in every single matchup. So I would say, given they already have one win, that they're going to pull this one out with a 4-1 match score. And as to where the one loss will be, I have insider information that Ron Mexico is inside Tues' head. He knows how to press all of his buttons, and he's going to just absolutely dismantle Tues this week.
Yeah, I'll never be in around Mexico. I think I played him like 2 or 3 times.
I think Tues wins. I think the two matchups to watch are actually C-Mac versus Catman and Typhoon versus Solo Jazz. I think Ducharmo, I can't bet against Ducharmo. I've never done it and I will keep not doing it. So I think Ducharmo beats Last Champ. I think Tues is going to beat Ron Mexico. and I think it will come down to Catman and Solo Jazz. So I think Tap Blast is going to win because they won Lawful Dog versus Tuna. But it's going to be a 3-2 win, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, should be a good one. Good one.
Yeah.
We do. I feel like our team is very scoutable. If you look back, there are some tendencies in our decks. So little
Yeah.
Except
helpful
for
for
the
the,
last
for the
champ.
other team.
The last champ could pull out
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
anything at any moment.
Yeah. There's just no knowing what direction he'll go.
What I think the thing I respect most about last champ is that he will build a deck. He'll play it for maybe, like an hour or two on ladder, and then, it's submitted. It's ready to go. And he'll
Good
spend
enough.
time fine tuning it, but if he needs to, if he's just put in a little bit of time on a deck and he feels like it's got potential, he's willing to put it in anywhere, and I feel like that gives him that menace that he needs to keep up this positive record and take the win.
Yeah. Avi, do you want to cue us about your team's match?
Yeah, so we got Bad to the Bone here against Serenity. We see, I think, very interesting 1 and 2 seed matches. I don't know the 2 seed on Serenity super well, but I have played against GCT Turf in a qualifier. We played the full control mirror,
Ugh.
absolute menace of a game. He was kind enough to concede after I stole his Lysiana as a priest playing against a shaman. And then we had another one where I was playing Control Warrior, and I think I got my Lysiana down, and he also opted to concede when it was fairly clear that he would lose. So an absolute scholar and a gentleman in GCT Turf, and I respect the ability to concede when you know that it's over, even though you have a few more turns to play out. So I think that our match will be a good one, a nice close one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also excited to see how the 2 seed goes. I think that self-proclaimed worst player on Bad to the Bone, LotusKnight, is going to take it in another sweep this week. I have no doubts in him.
I just want to know this season, I have all of my matches, I have either lost or I have swept. There's been no other outcome so far.
Yeah, I mean, if you win, you might as well win right,
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I think Aga Waffle and Farron are just too good of players to keep their losing record, and I think they're both going to take it in the 4 and the 5 this week.
Yeah. Tues, any thoughts here?
Not particularly. I think Bad to the Bone's a really good team. I feel like they can beat pretty much anyone. I think they will. They'll win this one pretty decisively, like a 3-2, maybe even a 5-0.
I hope we do well. I'm very excited to see our captain, Avi, facing GCT Turf. I think if you want to play it on stream, let me know. We'll get Schoolstone to stream it. I know GCT Turf has a weird schedule, so I don't know when you guys scheduled or anything like that.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
GC
we'll
can
see.
talk you into playing at the India time, and then play the full control lineup and just put you to sleep.
Genius. See, I've shifted my schedule enough that I'm almost on India time now, so it'll be a good match.
Big brain, big brain.
It's a counter gambit. Ooh. And we got a nice and exciting match up next with For the Boys Asterisk versus Aeon.
Yeah. Do you want to go over that one?
Ooh.
Yeah, I think it's
I
a really
would.
important match for both teams, actually.
So we got
'Cause both.
based.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
wait. No,
No,
you
you
go.
go.
You go.
No,
I
you go.
took the
You
last one.
go.
No.
I don't know. Just both the teams are 1 and 2, and I think that they probably had much higher aspirations than where they're at right now. Aeon being a
Yeah.
finalist, and for the boys, they were pretty solid last season, right? Like definitely trying to push into that playoff contention area.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, taking a loss to another team that's kind of like below you, or like kind of like an equal round, and just getting pushed below them and having them create that separation on you really sucks. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be pretty devastating whoever loses this one, especially if it's not just like a close loss. But that being said, I think that the matchups are all pretty close.
Yeah, and the 5 seed between Nine Eyebrows and Ridiculous Hat, both players who I would not have predicted to be 0-3 at this point in the
Yeah,
season, is
no.
gonna be an interesting one to see who can, shake off their losses and just, you know, get back in it.
Hmm.
Well, I think the important point is Nine Eyebrows need to stop playing wild for a few seconds,
Yeah,
just so he can play
honestly,
some standard.
I think that's the exact same story with Ridiculous Hat. I think what we've learned is that playing wild just makes you a much worse Hearthstone player, and you just need to focus on standard.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
and you're
Honestly,
just used to
just
playing.
practice wild. Just practice wild by playing standard, and just like use the wild decks in tournaments.
Ah,
Just the
yeah, I
quota
think I
competition on the wild ladder is just so much lower that it's not
I
really
think the
worth
lesson here
playing.
is you just start taking your standard decks into wild so you can practice them all the time.
Oh.
And then that way you can play your wild that you enjoy so much, but you could also get practice for your pro season and not go 0-3 like these two, unfortunate individuals.
Yeah, I think as long as there's no quest mage in standard, I'm fine. I just don't want to play with my opponent having multiple giant turns in a row.
Also, is there an explicit rule that pro has to be standard?
I believe that there is, yeah. I think all non-wild formats have to be standard.
Yeah, actually, what you don't know is GCT Turth and I, after our long control mirror, we agreed that the best way to go for our pro match this week is going to be a battlegrounds match. So expect to see that on stream over the weekend.
Oh, we'll see those reforms. So as for our last match of the week, we have F2L versus the Beard Boys. F2L not going with the hottest starts, even though they're not completely down in points. They only have 35 points, and their best match has been a tie. So we have Liquid Ox facing Bill Snyder, who's a surprise replacement for the
Oh,
Beard
the
Boys.
ringer.
Rebob versus Anasabe, Berserk versus Inzi, Snake versus Hockey, and Itachi versus Booze. How do you guys feel about this match?
I feel like it's very
Well,
similar to the last match.
yeah, I think F2L also just has very strong players in the 1, 2, and 3 that are showing that they're very strong, and certainly their 4 and 5 seeds shouldn't be underestimated despite being 0-3. Um, we see another 5 seed match between two 0-3 players that I don't think I would have predicted to be at 0-3 with Itachi and Buzosaurus, although Boo certainly has a history of tanking some seasons and then having some exceptional seasons, so he
Yeah.
might decide that this is his time to tank his PR, forgetting that Pro has no PR. An
Yeah.
unfortunate decision.
Yeah, then we need Mayan to just quickly remind Booze that Pro doesn't have
Yeah,
PR.
so
There's no reason to tank.
yeah, what you gotta do is you gotta remind Booze that he's not affecting his PR here, and then I think that's just gonna be the motivation he needs to take it over Itachi.
Mhm.
As much as I love my boy Corbin, he is going up against Liquid Ox. I think some of the toughest competition in all of the league, especially when Liquid Ox is actually taking his matches seriously as he seems to this season. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens with that, but I find it hard to call it in Corbin's favor as much as I might like to. I think that Anasabe could easily take it over Rebob here. I think Anasabe is a bit favored in my mind, if anything, although it's hard to give anybody too big of an edge here. Um, Anzi versus Berserk is another really good match. I don't see any bad matches here, is the main thing. I think all of
No.
these could be hard fought and either player could win.
Yeah.
Hockey boys coming in. Permasub and Verlezimos, I think. Or was he on the
Oh,
team the whole time? Or no, he's
we have incoming news that Enzi has made the classic
Yeah.
blunder of submitting two priests and now literally cannot win his match.
Yeah, I
So
just
I'm gonna
noticed
have to
that.
say that the 3 seed clearly goes to Berserk here. It's not even close.
Yeah, that sounds true.
Yeah, based on that info, I think you have to kind of give it to F2L. I think I
Yeah,
was
I would
almost
agree.
leaning there already, and then knowing they already have a lead.
But I would like to see the Beard Boys pull one out here if they can. I mean, I think either of these teams coming back into the season would be a really nice thing to see. So
Hmm.
we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
As
I
you see,
guess.
Icon captaining a number of the F2L teams, but keeping himself out of the teams. He's playing against us in Legacy this week, and he just subbed himself right out for Lemur, putting an extremely strong player in his place. So, Icon's making moves here.
Yeah. Well, this brings our week 4 preview to a close. We didn't have any subs, so instead of the sub specials, I wonder if anyone has any questions they want to ask. We'll answer them real time, no scripts, nothing planned. I'll start with just which was the pro match that you're most excited to see? I'll put the matches back if in case you don't remember all of them.
Wait, like team versus team or player versus player?
Team versus team. Could also be player versus player if you want to answer that.
Honestly, Due Process versus Stay the Blazes Home. I think it's kind of just like two sort of unknown teams. Not the unknowns, but like teams that kind of I think people want to see some sample size on against each other, which I think will be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's actually really interesting. This week we ended up with a lot of teams with very similar point values playing each other. I think the one notable exception being Bad to the Bone versus Serenity is probably the biggest point gap we see here, but almost, I guess Stay the Blazes Home versus Due Process is actually a bigger point gap than I thought, given the record. But like players or teams got matched up relatively closely, given that it's just a totally random ordering for the schedule.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting to see. We got a lot of close matches, and I think both the top and the bottom, the Trifling versus Mishas, I'm very excited for, and F2L versus Beard Boys is also a match I'm very excited to see.
I agree. I honestly think there are way too many exciting matches, and I wish everyone would get on stream. Hint, hint. Yeah, I'm excited for quite a lot of them. I think Tues versus Ron Mexico as an individual match will be really good. I'm also excited to Agent PWE versus ESO Gokta, or however you say his name. And there are a few others here and there that I would love to watch. Not answering the top 6 matches. Think all of them would be my answer, probably.
I'd say it's probably 5 of these matches, and then we leave out the Tap Lowest 103 versus the Unknown, because I just hate seeing Tap Last 103 play. It's just like most of the team is good, but I just see Tues in the one, and it's like I can't watch this team. It's too much for me. So I think in
That's
the
fair.
place I have to put just every single match played by a Hunter Ace in GMs this week in the place of that match, because I just much rather see Hunter Ace play.
That's fair. I mean, he's a really good player.
Yeah.
A question from Inzi here. Avi, when will you start streaming at 9 p.m. again so I can actually watch?
Well, the plan was tonight, and then I decided that I was going to be at Hearthcenter, so that didn't happen. But I guess tomorrow night now, especially because I'm going to have an Open Cup starting tomorrow night, so that's going to force me to stream at 9 p.m. I do have it in my calendar now, though, so hopefully that'll help.
Cool. Well, we don't seem to have too many other questions, and we are over time for 10 minutes, so I think we can call it a night here. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed Hearthcenter. We're always happy to bring you some pro action. And I want to thank my guests, Avi and Tues. Thank you very much for coming this week.
That's cool.
Yeah, thank you for having us on. It was a fun show. A
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
really good matches to look at.
I think Hearthcenter is a fun show because we just get to have a fun conversation, and there are some really good matches happening in Pro this season. This is quite the season for Pro.
Oh yeah, and here's your Tuesday reminder that if you ever want to watch the objectively best show on THL, you just have to pop in on the on Wednesday. I think I said Tuesday before. On Wednesday every week, and just watch Hearthcenter.
That's true. And
It's
you
just
can,
the best one.
yeah, And you can also sub for free for Hearthcenter with Twitch Prime. If you have an Amazon Prime, or just sub normally, you can also give money, and it's used
At
for
NZ.
THL.
I see the Twitch Prime logo in Z.
That being said, I guess this is time for us to go. I'll give you all some more ukulele music. Credits to Tues as we
Let's
say
go.
goodnight.
Bye.
Goodbye, and enjoy your children's music with your children's card game.